Hello guys, in this video we are going to see about periodicity and properties. The topic of this lesson is actually classification of elements and periodicity in properties. So we are actually done with the classification of elements. In the previous videos we have seen how the elements are classified into different groups and periods and arranged in the long form of the periodic table. Now we are moving on to the next part of the topic of this lesson, periodicity in properties. After arranging these elements in a proper form in the periodic table, now we are going to learn the various properties of elements. The various properties of elements may be divided into the following categories: properties of individual atoms and properties of the group of atoms. When we say properties of individual atoms, we say about properties like valency, atomic and ionic radii, ionization enthalpy, electron gain enthalpy, electronegativity. All this we will be learning now. They are the properties of the individual atoms. These are all the properties of individual atoms and they are directly related to the electronic configurations. So we call these properties as properties of individual atoms. The second category, which are the properties of group of atoms, properties like melting point, boiling point, density, atomic volume, they are all the bulk properties. That is, they are the properties of a collection or group of atoms. We don't talk about boiling point about an individual atom. We are talking about a group of atoms. But when we are talking about atomic radii, we are talking about individual atoms. So properties like these melting points and boiling points are talked only for group of atoms and they are only indirectly related to the electronic configurations, whereas these properties are directly related to the atomic structure and the electronic configuration, whereas these properties are related to the electronic configuration indirectly. So all those properties which are directly or indirectly related to the atomic structure or the electronic configuration are called as atomic properties. When we learned about the periodic table, we said electronic configuration of the elements are a periodic function of their atomic numbers. That is, they get repeated after certain regular intervals. Depending on that only we arrange the elements in the periodic table. So these atomic properties are also a periodic function of the atomic numbers of the elements. So that is the reason why atomic properties are also called periodic properties. So you can define periodic properties as the properties which are directly or indirectly related to the electronic configuration and which show a regular gradation, which means a regular trend when we move from left to right in a period or from top to bottom in a group are called periodic properties. So these periodic properties, they are directly or indirectly related to the electronic configuration and they show a regular gradation, which means a repetition or regular change when we move from left to right in a period or from top to bottom of a group in a periodic table. So we are going to see about these periodic properties in detail. In your book, we have these periodic properties discussed in detail: atomic and ionic radii, ionization enthalpy, electron gain enthalpy, electronegativity. In today's video, we are going to see in detail about atomic and ionic radii. When we say atomic radii, it is nothing but the size of an atom. That is, the atomic size is a very important property of an atom because many physical and chemical properties of the atom are related to its size. If an atom is considered to be a sphere, the atomic size is given by the radius of the sphere and it is commonly known as atomic radius. So if you consider the atom to be a sphere, you can define the atomic radii as the distance from the center of the nucleus to the outermost shell containing the electrons. That distance is called as the radii. Just like how you define the radius of a circle, the distance from the center of the nucleus to the point up to which the density of the electron cloud is maximum. We have seen about this electron density and probability of finding the electron in the second lesson. So the distance from the center of the nucleus to the point up to which the density of the electron cloud is maximum is called as atomic radii. Even though we are defining atomic radii like this, there are many difficulties in determining the atomic radius. We cannot determine the atomic radius precisely due to certain reasons. The first reason, it is not possible to isolate a single atom for the purpose of determination of its radius. And the second reason, the size of an atom, which means the radius of an atom, cannot be determined precisely since the electron cloud surrounding the atom does not have a sharp boundary, because of the reason that the probability of finding an electron never becomes zero even at large distances from the nucleus, which we have seen in the previous lesson. So the electron cloud does not have a sharp boundary. But despite of having all these limitations, we need some operational definition for the radius of an atom or an ion. This is actually necessary in order to explain a number of chemical properties of different elements in terms of the size of their atoms or ions. So there are three operational concepts which have been widely used. We say them as types of atomic radii. So they are covalent radii, van der Waals radii, and metallic radii. We will see each one of them in detail. We'll begin with the covalent radius. Covalent radius is defined as 1/2 the distance between the nuclei of two covalently bonded atoms of the same element in a molecule. If you take a molecule of an element, it is made up of two atoms which are bonded covalently. You know what is a covalent bond? It is formed by sharing of electrons. You will be learning about these types of bonds as ionic bond, covalent bond in next chapter. So you are taking two atoms which are bonded covalently, and we call this a molecule. Let's take this as a homonuclear diatomic molecule. Homonuclear means both the atoms are the same atoms. For example, hydrogen molecule or nitrogen molecule, both atoms will be same in a molecule. So this is homonuclear diatomic because we have two atoms, and this is a molecule. Here the covalent radius is defined as 1/2 the distance between the nuclei of two covalently bonded atoms. So these are the two covalently bonded atoms, and this is the distance between their nuclei. This distance divided by 2 will give you the covalent radius. See, this is the nucleus, and this is the radius of this atom, and this is the radius of this atom. See, this is the radius from here to here, and here to here is the radius. So this whole length is the internuclear distance. If you divide that by 2, that gives you the radius of one atom. So you can write radius of A is equal to half the internuclear distance, and internuclear distance can be written as dA bond A. So radius of A is equal to half the internuclear distance, and the internuclear distance is also called as bond length, which can be found experimentally. Now, let's take an example. Here we are taking the example of hydrogen molecule. The internuclear distance between two hydrogen atom in hydrogen molecule is 74 picometer. Let's take this to be a hydrogen molecule. These are the two hydrogen atoms. This internuclear distance for hydrogen molecule is given as 74 picometer. Now, if I want the covalent radius of the hydrogen atom, then that would be equal to 74 divided by 2, that gives me 37 picometer. So the covalent radius of an hydrogen atom is 37 picometer. So this is the covalent radius. The next one is van der Waals radius. Van der Waals radius is defined as 1/2 the distance between the nuclei of two identical non-bonded isolated atoms, or you can say two adjacent identical atoms belonging to two neighboring molecules of an element in the solid state. Now see, if this is a molecule which is having two atoms bonded covalently, this is another molecule. Again we have two atoms bonded covalently. Now look at this atom. This atom is in this molecule, and this atom in this molecule. These two molecules are neighbors. These two atoms, this part of this atom and this part of this molecule, are not bonded. They are just neighbors. Now the distance between the nuclei of the non-bonded atoms, these two atoms are not bonded, and this distance between these two nuclei is called as van der Waals radii. The name van der Waals radius simply means that the forces existing between these two non-bonded atoms are called as weak van der Waals forces of attraction. So since we are talking about this distance, we are using this term van der Waals radius. So this is the distance. So what is van der Waals radius? The 1/2 of this distance. So take this distance and divide it by 2, you get what? Van der Waals radius. Same way, if you take this distance and divide it by 2, you get covalent radius. So what is van der Waals radius? 1/2 of the distance between the nuclei of two identical non-bonded isolated atoms. So this length divided by 2 gives you the van der Waals radius, and remember, these two atoms are not bonded, they are just neighbors. For example, internuclear distance between the adjacent chlorine atoms of the neighboring molecules is equal to 360 picometer, which means this distance is given as 360 picometer. Then what is the van der Waals radii? Van der Waals radius of chlorine atom is equal to 360 divided by 2, that gives you 180 picometer. But this length divided by 2 gives you 99 picometer, and that is the covalent radii. And this length divided by 2 gives you the van der Waals radii. Now comparing van der Waals radii with covalent radii, van der Waals radius is bigger in size than covalent radius. The reason is, here when we are talking about van der Waals forces of attraction, they are weak, and therefore this distance will be much larger than the covalently bonded atoms. In the case of covalently bonded atoms, they are overlapping on one another, so this distance is less. Whereas between this and this atom, there is just van der Waals force of attraction which is weak, so this length is bigger. So van der Waals radii is bigger in size than covalent radii. Now the next radius is metallic radius. When you take a metal and see in its crystal lattice, according to electron C model, a metal crystal lattice consists of positive kernels or metal ions in a sea of mobile valence electrons. So this is the metal ion and it is surrounded by mobile electrons. This is the arrangement of metal lattice, metal crystal lattice. So each metal ion is attracted by a number of mobile electrons, and each mobile electron is in turn attracted by a number of metal ions. So there is simultaneous force of attraction between the mobile electrons and the positive ions. We call that as kernels, and that attraction is called as metallic bond. So you can define metallic radius as 1/2 the internuclear distance between the two adjacent metal ions in the metallic lattice. So just like how we talk about covalently bonded atoms, the internuclear distance, we are talking about two metal ions and which are adjacent to each other, and if you take 1/2 of the internuclear distance, then we get the metallic radius, and these internuclear distances can be determined by X-ray studies. Just like in van der Waals radius, here in metallic lattice, the valence electrons are mobile, therefore they are only weakly attracted by the metal ions. So compared to covalent bond, where a pair of electrons are strongly attracted by the nuclei of two atoms. So metallic radius is always longer than its covalent radius because the attraction is less, so the length will be more. But in the case of covalent radii, the atoms are strongly bonded, so that internuclear distance is small, so the radius will be small again. So when you compare all the three radius, which are covalent radius, van der Waals radius and metallic radius, this is the order of their atomic radii. Van der Waals radii will be the longest, while the covalent radius is the shortest, because covalent in a covalent molecule the atoms are overlapping. In metallic radius they are attracted by a weak metallic force. But in van der Waals radius, the neighboring atoms are attracted by a very weak van der Waals force. Compared to van der Waals force, metallic bonding is stronger. So the order of their atomic radii is this: van der Waals radius being the longest and covalent radius being the shortest. Now we are going to see how this atomic radius changes along the period and down the group. In general, the atomic size decreases when you move from left to right of the periodic table, which means you are moving along a period, the atomic radii decreases. I have taken the example of second period. In second period, we have lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine and neon. So when you look at the atomic number, for lithium it is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 till neon. Now when we write the electronic configuration, see for lithium 1s to 2s1. In the case of beryllium 1s to 2s2, and in the case of boron 1s to 2s to 2p1, and in the case of carbon it is 1s to 2s to 2p2. Here it is 2p3, 2p4, 2p5 and 2p6. So when you are writing it in the shells, you can write 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 5, 2, 6, 2, 7 and 2, 8. As we move from left to right in a period, the nuclear charge increases. See, because the number of protons keep on increasing, so the nuclear charge increases by 1 unit in each succeeding element, while the number of the shell remains the same. See here, KL shell, KL, KL, KL. So even though the atomic number increases, the newly coming electron enters the same shell as you move from left to right of a periodic table. Since the nuclear charge is increased, the electrons of all the shells are pulled little closer to the nucleus, thereby making the shell smaller in size. Here the second shell, the electron is present. The second shell is pulled by 3 nuclear charge. Here the second shell is pulled by 4. Here the second shell is pulled by 5 nuclear charge. Here the second shell is pulled by 10 nuclear charge. So as the nuclear charge increases, they pull the shells with stronger force. So the atomic size decreases. So in a period, the atomic size decreases. So if you look at this table, you can see for lithium it is 152 and for fluorine it is 72. So you can say alkali metals have the bigger size and halogens have the smaller size. But you can notice here the atomic radius abruptly increases as we move from halogen to the inert gas. This is due to the reason that in case of inert gas, the atomic size is expressed in van der Waals radii because they do not form covalent bonds. As they have completely filled valence shell, they don't form bonds with the neighboring atom. So we are talking about van der Waals radii here, whereas here we are talking about covalent radii. And just now we have seen covalent radius is smaller than van der Waals radius, and that is the reason why there is an abrupt change in the atomic radius when you move from halogen to inert gas. But in general, atomic size decreases as you move from left to right of a periodic table, which means you are moving along the period, the atomic radii decreases. And just now we saw the reason: the newly coming electron enter the same shell, and at the same time what is increasing? The nuclear charge is increasing. The attraction of the nuclear charge over the valence shell will be more as you move from this side to that side, so the size of the atom decreases. Now when you move down a group, I am taking the first group. So first element in the first group we are having lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium. For lithium the atomic number is 3, for sodium it is 11, potassium 19, rubidium 37. So if you write the electronic configuration, it is 2, 1. For sodium 2, 8, 1. And for potassium 2881, and for rubidium again the number of shells increases. So as you move down the group, the newly coming electron enter new shell. So obviously the atomic size increases. So as you move down the group, the atomic radii increases, but when you move along the period, the atomic radii decreases. So next we are going to see ionic radii. When we say atomic radii, it corresponds to the radius of the atom. When we say ionic radii, it corresponds to the radius of the ions. So how an ion is formed? When you take an atom and if an electron is removed, you get an ion. Same way, when you take an atom and you add an electron, you get an ion. In the case where electron is removed from an atom, you get a positive ion, which is called as cation. In the case where you add an electron, you get a negative ion, which is called as anion. So there are two types of ions: cations, which are positively charged, and anions, which are negatively charged. You remember in computer language we say C plus. So remember, C plus, C is cation, it is positively charged. So just like how we define atomic radius, like the distance from the center of the nucleus to the outermost shell of an atom, you can define ionic radius as distance from the center of the nucleus to the outermost shell of the ion, not an atom. So you can say ionic radius may be defined as the effective distance from the center of the nucleus of the ion up to which it exerts its influence on its electronic cloud. So when you are talking about the radius of an atom, we use the term atomic radii. If you are talking about the radius of an ion, we use the term ionic radii. Just like how we find out the atomic radius from internuclear distance, here also we are going to take the internuclear distance between the two ions. Consider this as a cation and this as an anion, and the distance between their nucleus is called as internuclear distance. So if you take the internuclear distance, which can be determined by X-ray measurements, and you can now assume that the positive and the negative ions are touching each other, this internuclear distance is then taken as the sum of the radius of two ions involved. So radius of the cation plus radius of the anion will be equal to this internuclear distance. So you can say the internuclear distance, which can be written as d C plus, which is cation and anion, is equal to radius of cation plus radius of anion. So if you know one of the radius, you can find out the radius of the another ion from the internuclear distance, which is determined experimentally. So if you know the radius of the anion, you can find the radius of the cation by subtracting the radius of the anion from the internuclear distance. Or if you know the radius of the cation, you can calculate the radius of the anion by subtracting this radius of cation from the internuclear distance, because we are taking this internuclear distance to be equal to the sum of radius of cation and the radius of anion. Now we will compare the size of the atoms and their ions. If you take an atom and if you get a cation from that atom and an anion from that atom, generally the size of the anion will be larger compared to the size of the atom, and the size of cation will be smaller compared to the size of the atom. So cation has the least size, and then the atom, and then the anion. Now, what is the trend of atomic radius in the periodic table? Along the period, atomic radii decreases, and down the group, atomic radii increases, and we have seen the reason. Same way, ionic radius, it decreases along the period and increases down the group. Here we use a term isoelectronic species, which we have studied in the second chapter also. Anyways, I'll recall it again. Isoelectronic species or ions of different elements which have same number of electrons. For example, we have Al3 plus. The atomic number for aluminium is 13. When you write 3 plus, which means you have removed 3 electrons. So now the total number of electrons in Al3 plus is 10. Mg2 plus. For Mg, the atomic number is 12. When you write 2 plus, you have removed 2 electrons, and now the number of electrons in Mg 10. So in all these given ions, the number of electrons equals to 10. So we call these species as isoelectronic species. See, they are ions of different elements, but they have the same number of electrons. Now, if you want to arrange these ions in the increasing order of their ionic radii, I have told you cations have a smaller size than the anions. So Al3 plus. Now when you are talking about different cations, then as the charge increases, the size decreases. See here all the three are cations. So you want to know which cation has the least size, then go with the charge. As this oxidation state increases, the size of the cation decreases. The reason is there is decrease in number of shells and there is increase in the nuclear charge. When you take aluminium, there was 13 electrons in the nucleus. When you take Al3 plus also, there are 13 electrons in the nucleus. But here the shell size in the case of aluminium, it is 2, 8, 3. So you have 3 shells. After removing 3 electrons, now the shell is 2, 8. You just have 2 shells. But the nuclear charge is the same. So the pull will be more in the case of Al3 plus than in Al. So the size of the cation is usually smaller compared to the anions and the atom. So in order to arrange these isoelectronic species in the increasing order of their ionic radii, you have to go with this order. The size of the cation is smaller than the size of the anion, and when you are looking for the anions and to decide on the size, then look here, this is F minus, this is O2 minus, N3 minus. As the charge, negative charge increases, the size of the anion increases. And here, as the positive charge increases, the size of the cation decreases. So this is all about atomic and ionic radii and their trend in the periodic table. You could see in your textbook a few graphs given showing the variation of atomic radius with atomic number across the second period, and also the variation of atomic radius with atomic number for all alkali metals and halogens with those values. Please go through that graph so that you could have a better understanding of this variation of atomic radius along the period and down the group. Thank you.